Ooh, ooh. Mm. Stretch it out. Stretch it out. All right, getting loose. Getting loose. All right, here we go. I'm attorney Aiden Kramer with the law office of Aiden H. Kramer in Colorado, and you are watching All Up in Your Business. And it's ponytail day here at the law office of Aiden H. Kramer, because sometimes us lawyers get lazy. And by sometimes, I mean most of the time. And by lawyers, I mean me. Today on All Up in Your Business, I'm going to give some of my opinions on websites like LegalZoom and other websites that kind of help you DIY legal issues. I've had a lot of people ask me about this recently and ask whether I think it's a good idea to use these types of websites and these types of DIY services for your legal needs, whether it be for estate planning or for forming a business or contracts. And so I wanted to talk about it briefly and just kind of give my thoughts on it. Now, I certainly don't mean to call out LegalZoom. They're just the biggest and the most popular and most well-known of these types of businesses. And I also don't want to really say anything too bad about them because sometimes they can be a good service. But I have other opinions. In general, I tell people to kind of stray away from those types of websites. Some of the documents and some of the things that you can get from these types of websites can occasionally be just fine for certain people and for certain needs. You get a boilerplate template document, whether it be a will or a trust agreement or an operating agreement or some other thing that concerns your business, a contract, and these can sometimes be okay for some people. But I'm kind of the mindset that when it comes to estate planning or business or really any legal issues, just okay or just fine is usually not good enough. So the biggest problem, I guess, with these websites is that they're not attorneys. These companies, they're not attorneys and they can't really give legal advice, and they are just offering these boilerplate documents that they will tailor somewhat to fit your situation by plugging in the information that you give to them. But because you are working with a computer and not with an attorney, the computer is not going to know to ask certain questions or that there are certain issues that should be addressed or should be brought up in your situation. And that's really one of the biggest benefits to working with an attorney to get a will or a contract written up or to start your business is that we went through 3 years of law school. I have the student loans to prove it. We had a lot of education in learning how to spot issues that will come up with clients. And because typically the people who use these websites haven't gone to law school, they also don't have the education or the training to make them aware of the fact that these are things that they should be pointing out or that should also be addressed. So for example, with estate planning, there could be situations in your family. Let's say you are in your second marriage, you're in a blended family. There are issues that come up in that situation that need to be addressed in your estate plan. And these websites usually won't know to ask those types of questions or be able to really work them in a personalized, specific way to fit your situation. And it's the same thing with a business. Some of these boilerplate contracts might be just fine for smaller transactions or smaller jobs or very typical run-of-the-mill transactions. But if you're starting a business, let's say, and you have some partners, there are a lot of issues that can come up when you have partners in a business that these websites won't be able to ask you or won't be able to advise you on. And even though some of these errors or some of these little mistakes, they might be pretty small mistakes, but little errors can oftentimes lead to big consequences and big problems. And those problems oftentimes aren't realized until it's too late, until somebody dies and their will is now going through probate. Or if there's a conflict between business owners, that's when these small issues are noticed and they could potentially turn into big problems. And then finally, the biggest benefit that I think there is to working with an attorney over doing these sorts of DIY websites for your legal needs is that you are working with an attorney. You're working with a person. And attorneys, to get our license to practice law, we have to agree to these rules of ethics. And part of those ethical rules is that we have to zealously look out for our clients. So we are always going to have our clients' best interests in mind, and we're going to be aware and make sure we're aware of things that could affect our clients. And these companies and these websites aren't lawyers. They're not law firms. They don't give legal advice, and they don't have those ethical requirements to really advocate and look out for their clients. So if there's a change in the law, or if something comes up that could affect your estate plan or your business, these websites, as far as I know, aren't going to alert you to that, or aren't going to do anything to make sure you are still going to be protected. And that's where the benefit of working with an attorney comes in, is that that's what we're here for, is to make sure you're going to be taken care of all the time. So of course, attorneys are more expensive than these websites. I'm well aware of that. I know that. But when you're dealing with legal issues and things that could affect your family or your business or your money or your livelihood, in most cases, it's better to invest that initial expense in working with an attorney to make sure you're doing everything the best way that it can be done. So that's just my 2 cents. Again, I don't think there's anything really wrong with these websites. For some people, the services and the things that they provide are just fine, but in general, I think people are better off working personally with an attorney. And I'm not just saying that because I am an attorney. I'm saying it because I know things about the law and about how these things work. So if you have any questions or comments about that, if you've had a great or a not so great experience with one of these websites, go ahead and comment them. I'd love to hear all of your guys' opinions and see your thoughts on the process too. If you're in Colorado and you would like to speak with me about possibly doing some estate planning or starting a business, or have any questions about your business, feel free to contact me. My phone number and email are below. Otherwise, thank you all so much for watching. I'm Aiden Kramer, and I'll see you next time.